So hi everyone. As I was introduced before, my name is Shidler. As you can tell, it's not from my name, but from my accent that I'm non-American. I was born and raised in Slovakia, and I actually came here like 10 years ago and studied at the University of Hawaii here at Shidler. And then after I graduated, I got the privilege to actually work for a company, Untitled Ventures, which I'm currently associated at. And then at that time when I came on board, we started the Accelerate Future program, right? That I'm going to talk a little bit about. So just put it out there, to be honest, I never started my own business. So you might be asking, why am I here to talk to you guys about starting your own business, right? So the one thing that, when I was at Untitled Ventures and worked with Accelerate VH, what I got an opportunity to do though is work with different entrepreneurs and over 30 plus startups in various stages and sectors, right? As well as evaluate businesses to make recommendations in order to invest the money, right? So I can provide you, seeing what kind of works and didn't work that I've seen over the past 5 years, as well as from that investor perspective of seeing like, okay, what are we looking for from you guys to see when we're actually going to be putting money into your business, right? So if you don't know about Untitled Ventures, it's a venture firm here in Hawaii that has been investing into businesses and working with entrepreneurs for the past 10 years. But outside of just the capital that we invested into companies, we like to say we are not necessarily traditional or typical VC, right? Because we also invest our time and resources in order to develop the community around entrepreneurship and innovation. And we do that through various efforts, which Accelerate VH is actually a big part of. So how many of you have heard about Accelerate VH before? I see some people that we already talked to and they applied for our past cohort. So let me raise hands. All right, awesome. It's always good to see also faces that haven't heard about Accelerate VH, so I can give a quick introduction. So Accelerate VH is an education and investment program, which usually lasts around 4 months. And we work with University of Hawaii students, faculty, staff, researchers, or anybody that has an affiliation to bring their ideas and technologies to market, right? And we do that by providing necessary resources. So quick background, we started around 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, as a partnership between University of Hawaii system and Untitled Ventures. And why I say University of Hawaii system is because this program is not only open to people that are here in Manila, but also to anybody that is going to community colleges or other universities that are in outer islands as well, right? So in the past 4 or 5 years, actually I need to update these numbers. So currently we are running our 6th cohort. We had with 4 companies in it. So far we graduated around or accelerated around 24 companies and worked with over 100 entrepreneurs. And in those 4 or 5 years, we actually became truly award-winning program because we got recognitions through multiple federal entities such as Small Business Administration, as well as Economic Development Administration. And in 2017, we've been recognized as one of the top 30 accelerators in the nation, right? And why, we see this as a big accomplishment because, a lot of accelerators that you have out there are pulling from wide geographic regions, right? So it doesn't need to be from one state. They're pulling all over from the US. The one thing that Accelerate VH does is not necessarily pulling from one state, we're just pulling from one entity, right? So these awards are not necessarily a testament to the work that we do, but to the entrepreneurs and technologies and businesses that are coming from University of Hawaii. So here's our portfolio. We have really diverse portfolio here. And actually, just to motivate you, a lot of people that are here, for example, Swipe Wrap, we have Herbivore, Regal 3D, June Innovations, I think Acrobatics is somewhere here. All of them went through business plan competition and previously actually, won the business plan competition, right? So it's truly when we were mentioning that, these activities that PIS is doing a lot of time is kind of feeding into our program. So more you're going to get engaged and take advantage of the resources that we provide here, that will help you to better prepare for the programs like ours. So what we're going to provide is, mentorship, network. The University of Hawaii is up to $175,000 in capital, as well as the education, right? So as I mentioned, if you go through Accelerate UH, if you're going there just for money, it's probably not going to be the right program, because you're going to be getting a lot of more than money in terms of getting your business to the next level. There are some stats, we had around 122 mentors and experts that came in and sit down with the teams. We hosted 160 plus workshops, so you can see that we are really heavy on that education part and working with you one-on-one. There's some partnership that you can take advantage of, and as I mentioned, all of you, since you're here, assume that you're all affiliated with the University of Hawaii, therefore you are all eligible to apply for our program. And we invested in companies in all stages, right? So we have companies that went through our program with hedges and idea. However, we had a couple of companies that already were post-revenue or even generating a couple of $1 billion in revenue, right? So it's really wide spectrum. And it's all industries, right? So if you go on our website and check out those companies that you see in our portfolio, you can see that they're really diverse. Not necessarily in the sector that they're in, but we also have, for example, we have undergraduate students in our program, we have researchers in our program, we have huge technology licensees in our program, right? So it's really open to anybody that has a good affiliation and has a good idea. So if you're interested, after business plan competition, you can apply for our cohort 7. We are currently recruiting, and we'll be starting our program starting in April, ending in July 2019. You can go on our website, you can see there, acceleratereach.com. On the left side, you're going to be looking at it, it's going to be on the right side. You can apply and fill out the short form application. It should not take you more than 5 minutes, because it has just the basic questions asking about you, your affiliation with the university, as well as briefly explaining your idea, right? So it's pretty nice and quick. All right, so now let's get to the actual presentation. So I want to ask you, so what comes into your mind when I say the word entrepreneur? Like, first thing.
Creativity.
Okay.
Problem solving.
Okay. Give me some examples of entrepreneurs. Who's in?
Steve Jobs.
Okay, good. Some other ones? Oh my God, guys, you don't know any entrepreneurs?
Sauerberg.
Okay.
Bezos.
Okay. Good. So a lot of times when we ask people what they're thinking, I think one thing that I haven't heard that I heard in other presentations, Elon Musk. I think that in the past has been the #1 person that I heard when people think about an entrepreneur, right? So the one thing, when we realized when we were talking to people about entrepreneurship and being entrepreneurial, a lot of times like these big successes come up, right? Being like, oh my God, like these people are really awesome, they have a lot of money, and things like that, right? A lot of people think about, okay, when the success actually happened, but they don't necessarily think about all the things that are going on here, what success actually look like. What it actually takes to get it or to make your business a success. And I think Peter kind of covered that of saying like, okay, there's another interesting data from CV Insights. It's what it actually takes to make this happen, right? And what is the reality of that majority of the businesses fail. As you can see, they did a study on 1,000 seed tech companies that actually, raised their first amount of funding. And after that, to become the Zuckerberg, it's just less than 1% of them, right? So those people are, I would say, outliers. That's not necessarily what's actually going to happen, right? So that's why when people say, I want to start my own business, right? We start working with them, and a lot of people are really enthusiastic about it, right? We're going to do great things, we're going to have a great product, save the world, we're going to have a great impact, we're going to make a lot of money, right? It's awesome. However, what happens, a lot of time, once you start, comes to the execution of that plan that you actually created, a lot of problems arise, right? And being like, it's not as great, things are not necessarily working out as I thought. I built an amazing product, and I thought, okay, I'm just gonna have a website, I'm gonna have this product, and people are gonna come, and I'm just gonna be selling, and we're gonna make money, right? Within a year. That's a great plan. Call me in a year, and then we can talk a little more, right? So a lot of times what happens is like, people see this top part here, what entrepreneurship is about, but not necessarily see this bottom part where the actual magic happens, right? So, a lot of times it comes to that, do not have that mindset of like, when I build it, they will come, right? And plan for other things that might actually go wrong. So, and things will go wrong, right? When you're gonna be going and trying to execute on your idea. But what great entrepreneurs actually do, they try different things. They adjust, they experiment, right? And that is how you're gonna get to that product market fit that actually Peter talked about, right? It's about adjusting, experimenting, pivoting, and figure out different things. And the lean methodology, what it allows you to do is not get lost in this part here, but it will give you a specific process that you can utilize in order to navigate these unknowns that are gonna happen, right? So when you look at it, who is an entrepreneur? And even when we're investing specifically into early stage ideas, right? Because I mentioned to you that we all also invested in companies that were just at idea stage, right? A lot of times it is about the people, right? And what we think about an entrepreneur that we like to invest in is one, being innovative. And that means actually not seeing when the problems arise. You don't necessarily see them as problems, but opportunities to come up with different solutions, right? And that does not relate just to your product, like being innovative within your product, but being innovative with an approach in your business and execution, right? So I think great resource for that is Alberto, right? So Alberto, who's currently in our cohort and went through this explain competition.
We wanted this.
Exactly. So he came in and he was like, well, we have a great product, however, I cannot find any developers, right? Or I cannot pay any developers to actually do that, right? So he was like thinking, our startup does not necessarily have money, but in order to raise money, I guess to work on the product and get it out there, right? So what he actually did is went out, right, and was not only complaining about, well, we cannot find in Hawaii any developers, and things like that. What he did is actually went to students within the University of Hawaii, Manila, and actually found people that he does not need to pay them, but will give them the experience of working on a startup, and developing things in order to help him build this product and get it to the customer, right, or get it to that minimum viable product. And Peter can tell you a little bit more about that. So that is what it means being innovative and being resourceful, right? The truth is you're never gonna have enough money or people in order to do what you want to do. And that is just a fact, and I would advise all of you to kind of come into peace with that, right? Because a lot of people come in and it's like, if we had enough money, we could have done this, or we need more money to actually do that. You want to say something?
I do, you can tell. Yeah. I told you about one of the questions I asked when I interviewed people or teams for Launchpad. I'll tell you about the other one, and that way, this will be really important when you hopefully apply to some Launchpad and we talk again. So, in addition to asking you why you failed in the future, I will also ask you what are the most important things you need in order to be successful now. And if the number one thing you need is money, I would usually reject you from the program because it's just not ever true. And what we're looking for is the resourcefulness of we're looking for resourceful entrepreneurs because whatever little bit of money is available in these programs isn't enough to get you into a successful place. So that shouldn't be the thing that you need. The thing you should need would be a developer, or you need to get your first customer, or you need to get some kind of expertise into the business. So yeah, money's not going to help you right now.
Yeah, and you've seen, in the news there were a lot of startups that raised millions in dollars, and then they never made it, right? They failed. Right? So definitely money is not necessarily the one thing that entrepreneurs need in order to make it happen, right? Money helps, but it's not everything, right? It's not going to solve all of your issues that you have. And the third one is entrepreneurs are creating value, right? And a lot of times when you look at it from an investor perspective, value means actually more money, right? But that's not necessarily it, right? We are looking for entrepreneurs who are looking to create value for the customer, right? And in order to create value for the customer, you need to figure out what customer actually needs, right? What are the problems that they have? How you can actually provide that value, right? And that kind of comes with the lean methodology and going out there and talking to people and figure out how you can create value, right? It's not necessarily about coming in and saying, this is the product that you need. You gotta be asking, what is it that my customers need so I can provide it to them, right? So, if I would summarize it, we specifically are looking, as investors, are looking for people that have that entrepreneurial mindset, right? And that was kind of describing all those three things. And a big part of that is not just having the ideas, but also be able to execute on things that you actually say you're gonna do, right? And that is a lot of part where a lot of entrepreneurs fail. So, what are we gonna cover today? We're gonna how to build a lean business, right? We're gonna talk about market research, value proposition, customer segments, what is the product market fit, and then since all of you, I believe what people will be expecting from you for the business plan competition, some tips on you actually going out there and talking to people, right? And best practices that we've seen that work for people or the mistakes that they've done, right? In order to get to that traction that Peter is actually saying. All right. So since you guys all seen this, what is the definition of a startup? And we'll see how many of you paid attention when Peter was presenting. That's a question.
An organization or venture that is looking for an effective business model and scalable.
Close, good, scalable. It's like mumble that word there. Scalable, in search, repeatable. Go ahead.
Startup is an enterprise in search of a scalable and repeatable business model.
Awesome. That was really, yeah, I know. See, you guys all should be taking notes, okay? So I think Peter already covered on this, right? So, but startups, when you're starting a business, a lot of times, Steve Blank, he kind of see that some people were thinking about, startups are not necessarily like big companies in small size, right? Because big companies already figure out the things that actually work, and it's more of an execution play. For you, what is it going to be? You still got to be looking out for what is that execution play that's going to make you successful, right? And what you are looking for is that scalable and repeatable business model, right? So when you look at the word repeatable, you're going to figure out like, okay, if I do X, Y is going to happen, right? If I put a one location here, I will be able to get, 1,000 customers per month. If I'm going to put that one ad out, I'm going to be able to get 10 customers a month, right? You're going to figure out what actually works. And when you're talking about the scalable part, so what do you guys think is scalable? How would you define it?
New market growth.
Something
Yeah.
that can be replicated without major additional cost to each replication.
Exactly, right? So a lot of times, the businesses that are not necessarily, so when you think about your barbershop, right? So barbershop are kind of limited to the location that they're in because they're serving just that market, and also limited to the people that they have, right? If you have one barber, there's just maximum amount that they have of customers that they can serve, right? If you want to serve more, you get to hire a second barber, right? And that's or open a new location, right? However, when you're looking at businesses, when you're talking about Google and things like that, they can do one thing and they can reach thousands and thousands of people, right? And a lot of times the scalability comes with the technology, but it also comes, you don't need to have the most innovative tech, but it also comes with like new business models, right? So even when you're looking at Airbnb, when they started, what was unique about it? Was that the technology?
It's not me.
Right? It was the way what they were actually selling, the business model, right? They figured out for people, you don't necessarily need to go into the hotel to book a room, right? But there was a marketplace that they actually put together where you can actually rent, content from strangers that are not using it, right? And that's the innovation that happens within the business model, not necessarily on the technology side, right? So we already covered this. So 75% of the startups actually fail when they're looking for this, when they're in the search for a repeatable and scalable business model, right? And these are all the reasons. And these ones are actually the ones that lean methodology will help you eliminate, right? And that, just think about it. Lean methodology, I'm going to talk about it a little bit later, is about going out and talking to people. So just by talking to your customers, you can de-risk your startup significantly, right? So that is why it's really important for you guys to be going out there and talking to people about your idea, right? If you're not going to be talking to people, you're not going to know how you're going to create that value that they are looking. If you're not creating value, people are not going to be buying your product. If you're not buying your product, you're not going to be making money, and then you're not going to get back money to the investors, right? How many of you heard about lean methodology before this presentation? Okay, so a few. Awesome. So for those that haven't heard about lean, it's not something necessarily new. It's not something that just came up, this year. But there have been big and successful startups and companies that have been using lean methodology in one way or another, whether they were starting or whether executing on their new efforts that are currently running. And then you have also companies that are more established that are currently applying this new methodology. And we are using lean. If you go through Accelerate Your program, we force our teams to actually go out and talk to over 2,700 people, right? That is a really important part for us to figure out and build a business that can be successful. You gotta have the foundation of figuring out what people actually need. So what lean is, as I mentioned at the bottom part when we look at the graph when it comes to that execution part, right? There are a lot of different directions that as a founder you can actually go, right? And it has been there previously before lean, there has not been any step-by-step process or approach that that the founders can use in order to figure out what actually works. However, Steve Blank came out with this new, they call it scientific method for startups. Right? That's what we call actual lean. So what is scientific method? Right? You're gonna have when we're referring to the hypothesis testing. You're gonna go out and you're doing your research. We'll have a hypothesis like this is what we think. Then you're gonna go and test it in your lab. You're gonna experiment. Then you're gonna look at the results and see what you found. You're gonna compare it to your hypothesis, and then you're gonna adjust it, right? This is what we learned, and this is what we're moving forward with next. Lean methodology is exactly the same thing. However, what actually changes is you're not gonna be doing your experiments in the lab. You're gonna be going out of the lab, and you're gonna be talking to people to figure out if your hypothesis or what value you're providing to the customer, or what is your competition and what other people are doing, right? You're going to be testing that with your customers to figure out the best action plan to go forward, right? And good news or bad news, you're going to be doing this over and over and over again, and it never stops, right? A lot of times when we see companies when they're going even to launch a business plan competition, they do all this amazing discovery with your customers. However, after that, after 100 interviews, they stop. It's this is something that actually helps you figure out what works for you. And customer discovery never stops. Even if you raise money, even if you find your product market fit, because market changes. Customer tastes, they change, right? It does not stay the same. And these days, those forces are changing more faster than ever, right? So you need to figure out how you're going to be relevant to your customers, but constantly innovating and having projects saying okay, what is it that they need, right? As also see what other people are actually doing. So any questions so far? So we were talking here about the experimenting and pivoting, right, to actually get to that product market fit. And a lot of times, what you're gonna start with here is not gonna be the same thing as you're gonna see right here, right? So you're never gonna end up with your original idea, or at least I can't think of any business that happened, right? So we say that 2/3 of the startups pivot or grasp something more from their original idea, right? Meaning like you need to be flexible and you need to be listening to your customers to figure out how you need to change your business model. It's not the other way around, right? You're not trying to fit your product or your business model and force it to the customers, right? You're trying to mold your product as well as business around what the customer needs, right? And that's where the pivot actually comes from. So, do any of you know these companies that I have here? Any guesses? At least look at the colors.
Facebook,
Yeah, which one?
Face Map.
Exactly. So, do you guys know what is Face Smash? Nobody watched Social Network or anything like that?
I did, but a long time.
Yeah, so FaceNet actually started originally as a platform when Zuckerberg actually downloaded all the pictures from the sororities of the girls on campus. And then what they did when you come to their website is like you have pictures of 2 girls and you rate which one is hotter, right? So when you look at what FaceNet was and what Facebook is today, completely 2 different things, right? But what they got great is actually iterating and changing what value they're providing to the customer, right? What services and features they need to have in order to do that. So what about these other ones? Instagram?
Instagram or
Exactly, right? And you know what Bourbon did before? Have you heard about Foursquare? What was Foursquare?
Basically rating like coffee shops.
Yeah, it was more location-based, right? So people will actually check into the locations, and then your other friends could actually see it and rate the location, right? So Bourbon was doing almost, I would say, the same thing, like focus on the bars. And then, so what they figured out when they look at what do their customers that come to their platform actually do, they figure out they were taking pictures, right? So people were not necessarily just, it was not about the checking in, but showcasing your visual experience of what food are you eating, which friends you are with, and things like that. And that's how Instagram actually became what they are today, right? And then you have audio. I mean, we talked about Facebook, we talked about Instagram, right? So which one is the third one? Twitter. Exactly, Twitter. So audio actually started almost as, I would say, a podcasting platform. Right? It was more about the audio rather than writing these short messages that you put out there. So as you can say, it's okay to pivot. So do not get married to your original idea, right? Listen when people actually will tell you that your baby is ugly, right? So the goal of this iteration and doing these pivots is to get to this product market fit, right? And I think Peter, and we're gonna touch upon that, what this product market fit actually means, right? It means that you find a product that people are willing to pay for and are using it, right? Sounds kind of simple, but it's not as easy as it sounds.
Well, one way to think about it is, product market fit would be when you've identified the type of customer that would buy the product, and basically every time you find somebody that looks like that, they buy your product. So instead of you try to force your product into the market and convince people that they need it, you fitted the product with the market in such a way that you don't actually have to waste those resources marketing and convincing people to use it because it's an obvious solution.
Yeah, and how you know that you're going to have a product market fit, it's through the attraction that Peter actually was talking about. An attraction in the sense that people are using your product or people are already buying your product, right? If they're not using or buying your product, you do not have a product market fit. All right, to summarize, Lean helps us eliminate uncertainty, work smarter, not just harder, right? Be capital efficient, which all investors really like you guys are capital efficient. Save development time and overall stay healthier and have less stress, right? So when we looked at the beginning what success looks like, right? On the right side, what it actually looks like in all these squiggly lines, right? Lean methodology will help you to have less of those squiggly lines and the wrong turns along your process of building a successful startup. I kind of like this quote, like running lean is a systematic process for iterating from plan A to a plan that works before running out of resources, right? And resources, a lot of times refer to money, right? But you don't necessarily want to be wasting also your time if it's not going to happen. So, how many of you seen business or heard about business model canvas? Okay. How many of you watched the videos that you were supposed to watch before coming to class today? Okay. I can tell from the first raise of hands, I don't think I needed to ask the second question. But if you haven't, please do so, right? I think that would be something useful and give you a little bit better perspective of what business model canvas and lean methodology actually is about, right? All right, so we talked about this lean methodology, and now we're talking about business model canvas, which will help you apply this, or it's a tool that you can use to apply this lean methodology into your startup, right? So it's basically a business plan on a page, and it looks something like this, okay? So it has various sections. It's literally like one page that you actually print out. And for all of you, if you type into Google business model canvas, this is going to pop up and you can actually print it out, right? And it has various segments that are really important when you're actually starting and thinking about your business, right? So we have the customer segments, the value proposition, customer relationships, channels, revenue streams, and all these other ones, right? And you can actually go online and figure out what all of these actually mean. What we're going to cover today is going to be the value proposition and customer segments, which are the first two parts that you're actually going to be starting with, right? And what this one page will allow you to do, right, instead of writing the actual full business plan, it will provide you the focus, right? So you have the six, because when you're working on your business, a lot of times it's hard to decide what is the first and most important thing to work on, right? Because there are a lot of things, you know, whether it's hiring people, whether it's figuring out your marketing strategy, whether it's developing product, whether it's looking at your market research, things like that, right? So this one will actually help you focus on the most important segments that you need to be focusing on in order to make it, right? It allows you flexibility, right? So you do not need to edit a 40, 50-page plan in order, you know, and update it every day that something changes, right? You can just cross out your value proposition and then put a new one. Easy. And it provides you transparency. So a lot of times when you're working with your teammates, you know, it's kind of hard to figure out what are people working on, what are we trying to do, right? So business model canvas will actually help you to do just that. Because everybody will see your plan, and everybody will see what you actually need to work on and what are you trying to test. Most common mistakes, if you're going to be going out and using this business model canvas, is that you fill it once and you're done, right? It's a one page because it's a live document, right? You should be editing it every time you go out and talk to customers. You should be coming back and seeing what have we learned and how did it impact those boxes and those things that we put into business model canvas, right? So if you are looking to just fill it once, I would say it's a waste of your time and I don't think you need to be filling it out. If you're planning and actually trying to get the value out of business model canvas, every week you should be coming back and adjusting the hypothesis that you actually put in there, right? And that leads me to the second one. You don't take everything you wrote as a hypothesis, right? Into those sections that we mentioned, right, whether that's your value proposition or customer segments, those are the things that you think are true, right? You're gonna come up with your hypotheses. You can come out like, okay, now I think our users are, you know, your students or the student demographics, right? You're gonna put it down there. And you're gonna go out and you're gonna talk to student demographics and you're gonna talk to other people and you might figure out, well, you know, students don't necessarily have money to pay for this type of product, but there are other people that actually want it, right? It might be the young working professionals that currently have their first income, so you're gonna put those on there, right? So everything is a hypothesis. It's something that you're gonna be going out there and testing, right? Because I guarantee you, none of you right now know what is the right thing to put there or not, right? Or what is the truth, or what it actually, you know, what your customers want to need. And the third one that happens a lot of times, like you're very generic in what you write down, right? So I think like, for example, we have several people for their, what value are we providing to customer or value proposition? People say, you know, people want, we're helping people to be healthier, right? Okay, raise hands who doesn't want to be healthier here. Nobody. All of you want to be healthier. Or anybody that you're going to talk to wants to be healthier. They want to save money. They want to be more efficient. So therefore, in order to get a quality feedback from your customers, you really need to be specific, right? What does it mean to save money? I'm okay with saving $2 or $10, or do I want to save hundreds of dollars, right? So more specific you are, the more you're gonna learn, right? So every time you're writing your hypothesis, be as specific as you can be, because otherwise you're not gonna learn, right? We had some of the teams that when they started using the business model canvas came in and said, it validated everything, basically what are we selling or the product, everybody loved it, and I think we're good to go. I was like, well, if everybody said that they love your product right now, or that you know who your customer is, or what is the value that you're providing to them, you probably haven't done your job, right? So business model canvas or lean, there's another, it's just one of the tools that you can use to for applying the lean methodology, right? There's also lean canvas. But there are a couple of things that are missing from these, right? So one thing, the big thing that is missing from business model canvas, and that we think is really important, and Peter actually touched upon, is the market size and competition, right? A lot of entrepreneurs, when they come with their ideas, they think they're the only one out there that are doing this type of thing, which is never true, right? The worst thing that you can actually do is come to a meeting to an investor and say, we are the first people that are doing this, right? Or nobody else is doing it out there. And I go online and I figure out another type of people that are doing exactly the same thing, that want to build a business and have a growing business on top of that, right? So, first step, before you even start going out and talking to people, what we believe, you've got to do your market research, you've got to do your homework, right? And there, we're going to be talking about what you should actually discover about your market. So when you're an entrepreneur and starting a business, you're basically stepping into unknown, right? And market research will help you arm yourself with a lot of data and information before you even go out there to know about the market, to know what's going on, right? So why do you need to do the market research, right? So first, estimate how big is the opportunity. And I think Peter kind of touched upon this already, right? We're saying like, okay, are there enough people out there that will make it worth it for me to pursue this idea, right? And that is from your perspective. Because if you figure out that there are just 10,000 people out there that are going to be using your product, right? You're probably not going to capture all of them, right? Is it worth it to go out there and actually build this idea and spend 5 years of your life doing this stuff, right? Then, doing your market research will help you to communicate effectively, right? And a lot of times it comes down to figuring out what is your niche market, right? How are you different than everybody else? How are you different from what is actually out there, right? And help you identify and understand opportunities. I think this also comes down to competition and figuring out, okay, what is that niche play that you have? A lot of times, when there's a lot of competition, it shows that there's a market, right? But just not necessarily showing like, oh, these are the competitors that are out there, and there are a lot of competitors, and therefore, it's worth it to make, to do this business. What you need to communicate is how are you different than all these people out there? What is different about your business that will make sure that it's, you will capture or take the market share from these other competitors, right? So we are looking at that niche. Pinpoint potential obstacles or problems. Right? Learn from other people's mistakes. You don't necessarily always need to learn from your own mistakes. And then benchmark, evaluate your success, right? So you can see how your competitors are doing and set goals and see in order to be seen by other people as a success on the market, right? If your goal is to make $1 million in revenue, however, majority of the companies in your space are making 100 million and plus, are we going to see you as a success? Not necessarily from the investor perspective. Right. So here is some definition, what market is and what market research is. So market research will help you understand potential customers who will buy your product or service, and if there are enough of these customers for you to pursue this opportunity. And we have two types of research, primary and secondary. So primary is the one when you're going to be talking directly to your customers, and the secondary one is the one that comes from gathering statistics, reports, studies, and basically doing the Google thing, right? So which one is a test? Which one are you gonna do first, primary or secondary?
Second.
Good job, guys. Awesome, but just doing secondary research is not gonna make a successful business, right? So you do your secondary research, and then you're gonna be going out there and talking to people, right? So you need to do both. It's not one or the other, you need to do both. Yeah. I think Peter already covered on that, so there's nothing like an original idea, right? So there have been, tons of people that probably came out with this idea before. You just need to figure out a lot of times why they made it or why they didn't make it. So what are we looking for the market size, right? So you want to figure out how many people are there that are going to be buying your product, right? And Peter was covering the top-down analysis and bottom-up. So when you're looking at the top-down, are the numbers of the reports that you see, right? Of saying like, okay, retail market takes in billions of dollars, right? And things like that. And then a lot of people say we can capture 1% of that, right? That's not necessarily as critical, right? Everybody can say that they're going to capture 1% of the market. What we want to see a lot of times is also that bottom-up analysis, right? Of seeing, okay, the top down will show you what other people are doing, what is out there, but the bottom up will show what you can capture, right? And that comes from thinking like, okay, how many people are within my area? How many businesses, if you're surveying businesses, how many businesses are here out in Honolulu in my specific area that I can serve, right? If we're going to be expanding outside of Honolulu, okay, how many businesses are here in Oahu that I can serve? How many businesses like that are overall in Hawaii or on the mainland, right? So you can see the bottom up is basically building from seeing like what your capability is, right? What is in your location, or not necessarily in your location, but the businesses that you're going to serve. If you're an online product, you got to figure out who is that niche customer that you're going to be serving first, right? And then competition is basically who else is out there that is going after the same market, right? And I think Peter covered on that. Don't never say nobody's doing what we do, right? Or we have no competition. Big no-nos, okay? So if some of you apply for accelerated engagement in their application, they're gonna say that they have no competition and they're the only ones. I can guarantee you will be rejected, okay? So why you should not be saying these things? What does no competition actually mean? So when you say this statement, right? It means you're lazy because you have not done your customer research, right? And you're trying to cover up that there's other competition, other people that are actually doing this. It shows, lack confidence, you're not trustworthy. And then if there's no competition, right, it might also mean that nobody really cares about the product that you're building. That's why nobody done it before, or nobody is in that space, right? Peter already covered on this, like direct competition, indirect competition, and status quo. So let's see. Who do you think is a direct competitor to Tesla?
Yeah.
Ford. Dodge. Chevy. That's the car companies.
What are companies?
Other home battery producers.
Airplanes.
Well, okay, so I just have a lot of things. So I would not say airplanes are necessarily direct competitors, right? So direct competitors, if I would think about it, and this is also subjective, is like, okay, are all the other manufacturers that are working on electric vehicles, right? If I look at indirect competition, potentially you may be saying that it can be all regular cars that are still riding out, right? And what about the status quo, right? What is the status quo? People, if you don't drive the car, what do you do?
Amish.
We call
Well,
it
I don't think
transportation.
that's necessarily the competition that this has, but strings. Exactly. Other means of transportation, right? If you're living in London or in New York, if you're driving a Tesla, is that something that you necessarily want to do? You can be using, the metro, or you can bike, or you can walk, right? But what Tesla did is actually find a niche customer that they're actually serving, right? It's the one that if you buy a Tesla, a sign of status, of luxury, we're environmentally friendly, progressive, and things like that.
I have a question. Do we look at Tesla as a car company, or do we look at Tesla as a battery company
Yeah,
who has battery?
In this example, I was looking at it as a car company.
I think their biggest competition is mobile.
That's the big thing.
Right? But that will show you, like, when you are going to be looking at who are the competitors that are out there, it's not necessarily just knowing, like, okay, who are the people that are producing, EV vehicles or cars, but you're going to look at all the other things that people currently are doing outside of just, driving a car, right? Like, how are people approaching the problems that they currently have, right? You wanna add something? So why you should be doing your competitive research, right? One is not wasting your time on building something that somebody already built and has a traction on. It's to help you figure out how to differentiate yourself, right? Finding that niche what other competitors are not necessarily solving for right now. And then if you come to the meetings with the investors, right, we will see you as an expert in your industry of knowing what's going on, right? Because we are not experts. But we can definitely tell when people are just making BS, right? As saying there's no competition. And there are all different competitive advantages that you have here. These are just a few of them. And I gotta tell you that a lot of times at this stage, you will have an idea what your competitive advantage might be, right? But that will not necessarily be the one once you build your business will actually be, right? So a lot of times at this early stage, it's really hard to pinpoint what is your competitive advantage, but you at least need to know an idea. Okay, how is that I provide a unique value to the customer, right? Or what is different about my business than what everybody else is actually doing there?